going to look at this passage here on 282. Probably the one question I get asked more than any other by people who know that I'm an agnostic scholar of the New Testament is why I continue to study and teach the New Testament if I no longer believe in it. Okay, he's saying he's an agnostic. He's not an atheist, but he's an agnostic. He says he's not sure if there's a God or not, and he certainly does not believe the Bible should be an authoritative text because he thinks it's riddled with contradictions and that the Bible is not divine in origin. If it's not, why bother studying? This is a question that has never made much sense to me. The Bible is the most important book in the history of Western civilization. It is the most widely purchased, the most widely studied, the most highly revered, the most completely misunderstood book ever. Why wouldn't I want to study it? So, question, why study? Number one, it's important. He says, I have friends who teach medieval English. They don't believe in Chaucer, but they think Chaucer is important. So they spend their lives studying and teaching and writing about Chaucer. The same is true of my friends who teach the classics. Homer, Sophocles, Euripides, Plato, Aristotle, Seneca, blah, blah, blah. They're reading these things because they're important. How many of you guys have read literature in literature classes that the professor explicitly told you that he or she did not like that book? What was it? Don't remember? The Telltale Heart. The professor didn't like it. Why is he or she teaching it? Presumably because Alexander Poe. It's Edgar Allan Poe is an important literary figure in American literature, and if you're going to understand American literature, you have to know something about Edgar Allan Poe, right? Poe did write that one, right? Okay. That would be embarrassing if he had. The idea is that it's just important. A working knowledge of American literature includes Poe, whether or not he personally likes Poe. Ehrman would say the same. Whether or not you like the Bible, it's an important text. And that's why it's worth studying. So this next paragraph. It's the same with scholarship devoted to the Bible. The only difference with the Bible is that so many people in our world actually believe in the Bible. I do not belittle anyone who continues to cherish the Bible as an inspired text. But in addition to reading the Bible devotionally, there is value in reading it historically. Now look at the top right on page 283. He gives a second reason why. Why should we study the Bible? One, it's super important, and just to understand our civilization, you got to know something about the Bible. Furthermore, even those of us who do not believe in the Bible can still learn from it. It is a book that deserves to be read and studied, not just as a document of faith, but also as a historical record of the thoughts, beliefs, experience, activities, loves, hates, prejudice, and opinions of other people who stand at the foundation of our civilization and culture. And then here, I think, is more to the point. It can help us think about the big issues of life. Why we are here. What we should be doing. What will become of this world. It can inspire us and warn us by its examples. It can urge us to pursue truth, to fight oppression, to work for justice, to insist on peace. It can motivate us to live life more fully while yet we can. Now,
turn the mark up above.
I think I can squeeze this out. That's probably not the most fortuitous phrase. Second explanation, why study the Bible? He seems to be suggesting it has some sort of timeless value. Even if you don't believe that it's divine, it's got some sort of intrinsic value. And he comes close to using the word timeless. If you look at the last 4 lines, There will never be a time in the history of the human race when such lessons will have become passé, when the thoughts of important religious thinkers of the past will be irrelevant for those of us living and thinking in the present. I think what he's saying is that, for instance, I teach religions of the East. We read Buddhist scriptures. We read Hindu scriptures. And as far as I know, I've never had a Buddhist or a Hindu in class. However, some of the students think that there is some value to those scriptures in studying them. That there's some timeless value to reading the Bhagavad Gita, for instance, even if they don't believe the Bhagavad Gita is divine in origin. You don't have to be a devout Hindu to think that there's something valuable to reading the Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, why study the Bible? Well, it seems to have some sort of timeless value. It speaks to us, no matter what time and place we live in. Does the Bible, and specifically, let's narrow it down. The texts that we read this semester, Matthew, Mark, John, what else did we read? 1 Corinthians, Galatians, selections from Romans. Do those things have a timeless value that's relevant no matter what time period we live in? No? Yeah.
How the world was back then.
That's not what Airman's saying. I mean, what you're saying is more like number one. It's important in the sense that it's of value to historians for reconstructing the past. But in number two, it's more existentialist, right? It's meaningful to our lives in some way, in a permanent way.
I think that's the second one of opinion, though.
So you're
might not be valuable to everybody.
So the idea that it has a timeless value, irrespective of your time and place, you think it's not true. It might have value for some, but not for others.
I disagree. I think it has like a lot of just cultural resonance. Like there are people out there that are believing in it and following it, and like so it is timeless to at least learn about it, because even if you don't necessarily believe in it, it gives you like a better perspective on what other people are thinking and what other people are
But again,
believing in.
that sounds more like number one. The idea that if you're going to understand people who follow the Bible, you should read the Bible to understand it. Number two seems to be something a little bit different from that. Does that make sense, or do you?
We still deal with like similar issues in our society that they had back then.
Okay, but I could say the same thing of any first century text, right? We read some other first century texts. What did we read? The War Scroll. What else?
Secret book.
Secret Book of John, Infancy Gospel of Thomas. Do you guys think that the War Scroll has a timeless value to us, irrespective of our time and place? How many of you would say yes, the War Scroll has a timeless value? How many of you agree that it could be important historically speaking, or if people today still studied it or worshipped it, it might be of value? So you would agree with one, but does anybody agree with two that the War Scroll has a timeless value? What makes the War Scroll or the Secret Book of John different from Galatians? Why does Galatians have a timeless value but the War Scroll does not?